Okay, so have you ever been like in church and maybe it's like worship time and you're like listening to the music, but you're not fully into it, you know, getting a little bit distracted on, you know, what's going on, like, look, that kid just fell, you know, just something like that, and you're not just fully integrated into the worship? Your girl certainly has multiple times. Hi guys, my name is Rejoice and this is Simply Rejoice. Subscribe if you're into Christian lifestyle videos and also just watching this journey on getting closer and more intimate with the God of Gods. This morning I feel liberated. Right, okay, so it's not a Sunday, it's a Thursday, so I didn't go to church today, but there's been like many times when I went to church in the past, and I don't know if you probably like felt this way as well, you know, when you're just kind of like listening to the music, trying to get into it, the worship, and then, you know, there are times when you do get into the worship and you're like, yeah, I'm loving this, but then, you know, there's other times when you're just not really like feeling it, if you know what I mean, like you're just not feeling like worshiping, you're not feeling like you're into the song. Maybe it's because you've heard your church play Reckless Loves so many times. I'm not gonna lie, that song will never get old though. Or whatever other song it might be that your church has maybe overplayed so much and you're just like, I'm not feeling it. Or maybe you're just like getting distracted. Like I've gotten distracted so many times when I'm in church. I'm like singing the words, or, you know, tapping, maybe a side tap and that clap that you do. I go to a Pentecostal church, so that's why we side tap and clap. Or wherever it is that you might be, but you're just not really feeling into it. Every time that like happened, I always used to get that phrase of, you know, the true worshippers worship God in spirit and in truth. And it kind of like almost like I wouldn't feel guilty or condemned, but I'd feel a bit like, oh man, like I need to be worshiping in spirit and truth right now. And for me, at the time, I just thought that worshiping in spirit and in truth meant that I had to be like crying, I had to be like getting these waves of emotion, like fully just feeling the atmosphere to its fullest during my praise and worship. And I'm not gonna lie, like some people, they experience that. You all have that like person in your church that's always like, oh, full out at the front, and like that is awesome. But then you also have like those other people who are just more like conservative, more quiet, and they both of those two people could be worshiping in spirit and in truth. And in that moment in time when I'm basically not, and I'm very confused as to how do I actually worship in spirit and in truth? How do I feel the emotions and the waves that I need to feel to get me into this, to get me to start feeling this song, even though it's been overplayed in my church too many times, but I still want to feel it. The other day we were actually listening to the radio in the car as the family was going on a road trip, and that's very rare because, you know, we usually play our Christian CDs and stuff like that, but this time we're just listening to the Christian radio station instead. And they actually talked about how like when we go to church and you listen to praise and worship and all this, and you're worshiping God, and then there's a song that comes on and you're like, oh my God, they play this so much, I don't want to listen to it. In that moment, actually, we need to realize that like us singing and so on, and us worshiping and singing that song on is not because, you know, we're doing it for ourselves. Yeah, I love this song, I'm gonna sing along to this song. I mean, there's a time, there's a place for that. But when we are, you know, in the state where we're gonna worship God now, listening and singing these songs, it's not like we're singing them for ourselves, but we're singing them for Him. And so if we're feeling sick and tired of these songs, it probably is because in the back of our heads, we're singing them, you know, more for ourselves and because we enjoy singing them rather than singing them to Him. Which when I heard that, I was like, yeah, I need to be sucking on that pill a lot more and really, you know, practicing and living that piece of word out, because it is very good wisdom. It's very good wisdom. And going back to worshiping Him in spirit and in truth, the reason I feel so liberated is because I thought this morning I'm going to look into what that really means and what it means to worship Him in spirit and truth, and how exactly I can take that and apply that to my own life and how it is that I worship God when I'm at church or at home or wherever it may be. And the way that Jesus spoke about worshiping God in spirit. Back then, when He had that conversation with the Samaritan woman, they used to worship their God, you know, at a specific place and following a ceremony. And Jesus was saying to her that you worship, you know, this God that you don't know, but we worship a God that we do know. And at the time would come when true worshippers would worship Him in spirit, would worship God in spirit, and that it would no longer be about geographical boundaries and, you know, having to be here, perform this ceremony in order to worship God, but it would just be about the state of our heart. And in fact, worshiping him in spirit is not, you know, feeling all these spiritual emotions and stuff like I slyly thought I had to feel when I was worshiping in spirit. But no, worshiping in spirit is when our worship is dictated by our love for him. It's when we basically are worshiping God because we love him, and it's all about the heart. So I love him, and so that is why I worship. That is why I sing the lyrics to those songs, because those lyrics just express in a beautiful melody my love for him. And that is all he wants. He wants you to worship him from a place of loving him, like worshiping because you love him, not worshiping because, you know, I'm in church right now and, you know, we have to sing this song. Because if that's the mentality, then we've completely lost what worshiping him in spirit means. Otherwise, that is just becoming a religious type of act, which is not what this is. The reason we sing, the reason we do that, the reason we worship is because we love him and we want to express that love. So our worship is dictated and controlled by our love for him. And to worship him in truth is to worship the God that you know, to be fully and properly informed of who it is that we're worshiping. In that conversation that Jesus had with the Samaritan woman, he said that you worship a God that you do not know, but we worship a God that we know. Essentially, we know who God is. The Bible tells us who he is. That is what we use to worship him. That is what we use to get to know who he is and who it is that we're worshiping. So when we're worshiping in truth, it means that we fully know, or we know who it is that we are worshiping, who it is that I'm singing these songs to. Am I singing this song to my friend? No. Am I singing this song to my parents? No. Am I singing this song to Bae? No. But I'm singing this song to the real Bae, to the King of Kings. Wow, rejoice. Really? But really, that is what we're doing when we're worshiping in spirit and we're worshiping in truth. We're worshiping out of the love that we have, and we're worshiping because we love him, and we're worshiping him because we know who he is. So we're worshiping someone we love and we know who it is that we love. And the best way to get fully informed of who he is, and even the best way to grow in love for him, is just to study the scriptures. I always say this and I always will say these. That is honestly how I started to love God a lot more. In fact, I went through a whole season where God was basically telling me, Rejoice, you need to strip all that stuff away that you think you know, and you need to come back and you need to just learn to love me. And I did, and I fell incredibly in love with God to a point that I didn't even know it was possible to love him in that way. Day by day now, even I fall more and more in love with him as I just read the scriptures and get to know more about who he is. And so I guess like the takeaway that I'm getting from this, and that I also want you guys to get as well, is you know, when you're in church and you're not feeling, you know, music, you're not feeling what's going on, it's just to kind of remember why it is that we do this, and just to remember that, you know what, like the reason I worship is because I love him, and I want my worship to be dictated by, you know, my love that I have for him. And I don't have to be, you know, super during the praise and worship, but just me just thinking and dwelling on how much I love him is just precious, and that's what he wants from us. And also just to, you know, conclude and say again that we don't have to be in church to worship him, but we can worship him doing, basically living our lives. Our whole life can be a worship to God. We're not combined to geographical boundaries and all that, but you know, we can do us now. Thank you so much for watching this video. Give a thumbs up if you want more videos like this one, and do subscribe because I've got other content that's pretty cool for you to check out. Press the notification bell so that you can know when I get a video out, and remember that in Christ you are blessed. Bye.